Good evening. My name is Charlotte Potter-Kasich. I am the Executive Director at the Berry Art Museum. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're here on December 2nd for the final piece of our fall lecture series. But let me back up. Let's talk a little bit about the museum. The Berry Art Museum has opened its doors in the fall of 2018. We house the personal collection of Dick and Carolyn Berry. We have rotating annual exhibitions, and we have lots of new acquisitions. The museum serves as one of the many cultural icons in Norfolk, Virginia, and sits at the gateway of Old Dominion University, right on the campus. Our collection has three primary collecting points. The first is American modernist paintings, as well as nautical paintings. The second is contemporary glass sculpture. And the third is historic dolls and automata. Our exhibitions vary largely. Currently, we have a small topical exhibition called Waxing and Waning, which is an accompaniment to the Museum of the Moon exhibit that we did this fall. It's only on view for a little bit longer, so come and check it out. Today, we're here to celebrate Karen LaMonte Theatre de la Mode, which has been an incredible exhibit. It closes at the end of January 2nd, so there's only a little bit more time to come and see it. It's a wonderful show that puts her pieces on center stage, created on sets and displayed on sets that were made by the ODU Theater Department. It was a really wonderful partnership, and you have a little bit more time to check it out. Upcoming, we have Motion Emotion, exploring the affect of automata to robots. This show explores contemporary robots that were developed directly on the ODU campus. It also has contemporary artists and historical automata. It spans a huge, vast subject matter, and we're really excited to be mounting this exhibit. We offer a number of programs at the Berry Art Museum. The first is tours, and there's a lot of different ways one can experience the tours, from self-guided audio tours. We have our free Sunday in-person tours. You can sign up for a multimedia tour with a live person from the museum broadcasting. We also have our 3D tours, virtual tours on our website. So there's a lot of different in-person and ways of engaging with our collection and our exhibits. We also have art-inspired yoga. This is a fun way to take a little bit of time out of your day and check out what we got going on through our collection. We have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to these, and you can see them at your leisure. We have a myriad of at-home activities that are free and open to the public. You can just download them. And then, of course, we have our lecture series. So today we're here to welcome Dooyoung Choi. We're really thrilled that she has agreed to come and do this conversation with us. It's pretty remarkable, actually, that we were able to pair with her. She works at the Fashion Merchandising Department. And as we were mounting this exhibit with Karen LaMonte's work, we really wanted to talk about a lot of different angles. And we've had a few different people discuss the different angles of her exhibit. But as the closing lecture for the show, we thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about the female self-sexualization that we often see. So I'm going to read her bio here. Dooyoung Choi will explore the phenomena of self-sexualization, self-empowerment, and the psychology around these philosophical shifts in the culture of our times. Dooyoung Choi is an assistant professor of fashion merchandising at Old Dominion University. She completed her MS and her PhD in apparel studies at the University of Minnesota. Her research interests include consumer behavior and social psychology aspects of dress, focusing on female self-sexualization. She has several publications about consumer behavior and self-sexualization. Please join me in welcoming Dooyoung Choi. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And thank you for joining. Let's see. I mean, first of all, I apologize for the weird angle. My work computer is not working, so I had to borrow a computer. And the computer has a camera attached on the bottom of the screen, so near the keyboard. So we get to see in. Okay, I hope that this works well. Did everyone get to see my slide?
Yes, it looks great.
Thank you so much. So Today, what I can humbly share with you today is one of my research areas that I see the connection with the Karen LaMonte's work, which is sexualization of women and how women has been portrayed in media culture. When I researched about Karen LaMonte's inspirations and the ideas that she wanted to portray in her work, that resonated with the phenomena of sexual objectification and self-sexualization. First, I'm going to briefly talk about how I see the connection on the topic with her work, then I move on to the lecture topic. A little disclaimer, because of the subject matter, some of the images and content on the later part of this presentation include somewhat sexually graphical photos and words, and those could be considered too sexual for younger viewers. If you are watching this with children, you may wait for the recording of this lecture, as this recording, it is being recorded right now, and it will be available through the museum. I don't know about you, but the first thing that captured my attention from her work was the female body. It's not just a female body, but the body that seems clothed and covered, revealed and exposed. So there is a tension between private and public, or a private body in a public space. And the female body is presented as a form without her face, which makes her unidentifiable as a person. From the shape of the figure, I can tell that it's a woman, and I see her body and her clothing draped over her. But other than that, I don't know her. Karen LaMonte explains that the reason for leaving out has and hands is that she wasn't interested in a particular person. Rather, she was interested in how the individual is defined by society and by clothing. That's why she didn't sculpture the body parts that are usually not clothed. So the individual is not identified as a person, but identified as the body defined by outsiders' perspectives. When it comes to identified as a body and viewed as an outsider's perspective, it occurs more often to women than men. Female body is often separated from her and evaluated by sections like her chest, her bottom, her legs, or her face. She is unidentifiable. In fact, it's not about the person, it's the body part. Often sexual part is the main show. When female body part, especially her sexual part or sexual function, is detached from her as a whole person, and that body part is viewed as the representation of the person, it is the condition of sexual objectification. By definition, sexual objectification occurs when a woman's sexual parts or functions are separated out from her person, reduced to status of mere instruments, or else regarded as if they were capable of representing her. Tonight, I want to talk about the use of women in mass media as a proxy for how women are perceived in society, starting from early 20th century to contemporary today. I will introduce you with these 4 sections of time period about how women were portrayed in 1920s and 30s, and then late 20th century to today. We will be spending more time on the later part, the last part, what is going on in today's culture, because we see something distinctively different from the previous decade. Let me take you to 1920s when nudity and sexual presentation wasn't that blunt. This cartoon you see on the screen was featured in a Life magazine in 1923. It pokes fun at the use of a bathing suit-clad woman to sell all manner of products and services, from meat to funeral service. The cartoon implies that advertisers, they believed that a scantily dressed woman could sell anything. Given the placement of the cartoon, in Life magazine, known in the 1920s for its satirical content and older and upper middle class readership audience, the image cannot be taken as a completely accurate portrayal of reality. However, because of its withering commentary of larger social trends, looking into the reality behind the spoof is worthwhile. So, with two other researchers, we looked at how women in bathing suit was displayed in magazines in the early 1920s. 1920 was a significant time period for women in many ways, including that it was the year when American women got the right to vote. For women at this time, modernity was connected to new roles in the workforce, the consumption of new products and technology, the accessibility and status of leisure activities, and even the glamour of Hollywood actresses playing roles of strong, independent women. Accompanying these new opportunities for the liberation of women were somewhat more controversial female behaviors. The flapper was the iconic image of the 20th modern woman who smoked cigarettes, drank, danced, and consorted with men unescorted until the late night. This so-called modern woman adopted new and often scandalous fashion styles such as short skirts, rolled down stockings, and short hair. The quintessential flapper was the reality and image, much like the busy bathing suit girl. The first official Miss America beauty contest in 1921 was not at all averse to using semi-clad women to promote their products because it started as a means to attract tourists to Atlantic City where the event was held. 1920 was a decade when Hollywood glamour, beauty contests, and consumer culture emphasized the physical display of the body as essential to feminine attractiveness. Just for your curiosity, she was the winner. During this period, the bathing suit became less modest and more revealing of the female body. Partially a result of a redefinition of modesty and partially functional. The image on your right shows the bathing suit style in 1910. And as you can imagine, you can't swim seriously when the body is covered in fabric that hampers movement. The new style of bathing suits, one piece covering the genitals to breast, were certainly more apt to endorse this modern emphasis on sexuality. The standards of feminine modesty in this era were a moving target, both on the street and on the beach. During this period, it was generally considered inappropriate for women to appear in public without wearing stockings. Even the scandalous flapper, they still wore stockings, though it lowered down to just above her knees. As for the beach, a woman's skirt length was monitored with a tape measure to ensure modesty. Head should be covered, stockings should be worn to cover legs. Women who didn't comply were arrested for inappropriate attire. While wearing the new style of bathing suits was considered highly improper and indicative of a lack of moral by some, to others, it indicated an up-to-date modernity. Surprisingly, given the backlash against the wearing rolled down or no stockings at the beach, many 1920s advertisements that we found featured the busy bathing girl with bare knees, if not entirely bare legs. We examined images of women in bathing suits from 9 magazines that were published from 1920 to 1923, the period preceding the cartoon, to know the reality behind it. Indeed, we found that bathing suit women appeared to promote all sorts of products across 22 product categories, from car, food, luggage to perfume, in a total of 73 specific advertisements. And I brought some examples. Bathing suit women were presented to sell bathing suit or related products such as boat or boat show event. Women appeared in bathing in both passive or active poses. Bathing suit women were also presented for promoting unrelated products such as drink, soup, yeast. The underlying motivation for these advertisements seemed to be selling a lifestyle, reflecting the modern status of leisure activity. Bathing suit girl was appeared to sell a drawing school. When bathing suit women were featured with men, men were often fully dressed, though neither gender displays any overt sexual connotations. However, the juxtaposition between a clothed man and less clothed woman does indicate a certain level of inequality regarding the importance of physical display in relation to gender. While the cartoon The Jill of All Trade can be considered just that, a cartoon, but there are some definitive aspects of reality behind the spoof to consider. There were examples of women wearing bathing suits to sell bathing suits, but there were also many advertisements selling other types of products like Coca-Cola, yeast, and soup. In their cases, the busy bathing girl was displayed to sell products as indicators of a certain lifestyle. They might or might not include swimming. Overall, the busy bathing girl cartoon was not a bit too distant an idea that sexual display of the female body can sell products in the early 1920s. The same research team continued on and extended the study to examine display of women to sell products now in men's magazines in 1930s, about a decade later of the busy bathing suit girl cartoon. American life in 30s was a period of many changes, including development of mass culture. Along with the radio and Hollywood movies, magazines encouraged the emergence of mass culture. Advertisement in magazines contained messages about gender roles, appropriate appearance, and behavior for both genders. So we looked at advertisement of the 1930s and see how women were portrayed in men's magazines. The magazines that we looked at were Gentleman's Quarterly and Esquire. These two magazines were targeted for a male audience, although there were some ads targeting women, such as nail polish or perfume for female. We collected the advertising images from the issues of every odd years from 1931 to 1941. We included advertising that covered bigger than or equal to a quarter size of page, and at least one woman has to be there to be included in the study. So a total of 311 advertising images were found across 37 product categories. I'm going to introduce you with the three dominant themes that we found. The presentation of women as something pretty to look at, women in a lesser position in power, and women as something that comes with a product. The first theme, women were there in the ads to be stared at by men in the ads, in frame or on a wall. Or they were literally really stared at by a man in the ads. Or women displayed for non-related products such as hat, ties, cigarettes. Women were just there smiling and posing, waving to be looked at by the viewers, the readers of the magazine. Sometimes women were in dramatized posture. They posed dramatically as if they were on a stage. Other times, they showed some skins or a shaving cream for men or a game gun. The ad on your right is an ad for perfume. And some nudity were excused for being artistic. Because bangless dress was in fashion in 1930s, women's bags were often shown. And similar to 1920s, there was a tendency to have all dressed men, all clothed men with less clothed women. The second thing we found was the presentation of women in a lesser position in power. High physical place symbolized high social position. As you can see in the ads, men were in physically higher place and they looked down women in a lower physical place. The juxtaposition between a standing man, a woman in a lower position, or even often shown in a laying down position, that indicates women in submission, passive, and powerless. This theme is the most frequently found theme, and this type of gender presentation is called ritualization of subordination. And women were shown in a lower occupational rank than men. We also found the presentation of women in costume or child lifestyle, as you see on the right. When you look at the left image, this grown-up woman was associated with her parents and her dolls she used to play with, so that this grown-up woman was underestimated for her maturity. Canting, which is off-centered, off-balanced position, knee bending, bowing were often used as well. The off-centered, off-balanced position is the opposite of a power position in a firm standing posture. In other cases, women were shown as if they were looking lost, psychologically drift from surrounding environment, where they avoid eye contact. This type of presentation is called license withdrawal. The third theme was the message that using the advertised product will get you a girl, perhaps many girls. And of course, the girl you get with the product is not your wife. And you can get a girl, perhaps many girls, who are not your wife, regardless of your age or look. Even if you are an old fellow, she could go for you if you use the right shaving cream or cigarettes. And this girl comes in addition to your social and business success. In June's issues, there were many Father's Day advertisements. You would imagine this type of ordinary Father's Day advertisement. However, we found a different type of Daddy's Day advertisement. Happy Father's Day to Daddy. The opposite type of getting a girl category was that you will lose a girl if you do not use this product. So don't be this guy. She will not be pleasant with you, or she will go alone, or she will laugh at you if you don't use this product. Lastly, Sometimes women were equated with a product. On the right side, a salesman was looking and evaluating a woman as if he's talking about a suit. What a shape, perfect body, swell back. So comparing to 20th magazines, in 20th, women in bathing suit were also promoting all sorts of products, and many of them were just there in the ad. But at least some of them were doing something in the advertisement, probably because they were wearing a bathing suit in which has a specific occasion, and probably because of the difference in the audience of the magazines. The display of a woman in the men's magazine in 30s was more than selling a product. It communicated a stereotyping typing of gender that involves fashion, sex, and power. Now, let me take you to the late 20th century and see if there were any change. Killing Us Softly is a documentary film created by Jean Kilbourne, who is an American writer and activist and previously a model. In her documentary, she pointed out the cultural normative environment created by advertising. Since the late 1960s, she collected advertisement and she realized a pattern that shows what it means to be a woman in American culture. She found that those ads presented us with the message that what's the most important for women is how she looks. Like this example on your left, Pantene hairspray advertisement in the 1970s. If your hair isn't beautiful, the rest hardly matters. Not only advertisement sent the message that the look is the most important for women, but also they showed us the image of ideal female beauty that is often unrealistic or generally unattainable for many women. We see countless advertising that displays distorted images, ideal of a feminine body and femininity. Unlike the 20s and 30s, where women may come with a product or woman is displayed just being attractive, we began to see women as an object or a product. Women finally appeared as products to be consumed. Her body parts or herself are the products that are advertised and to be consumed, in this case, like this case. In addition to that, the use of photos gives off a degree of illusion that these women are real and do exist. Thus, the beauty image or the objectification of women is plausible and real. Now, I want to talk about what is going on today, the 21st century. We still see the same practice that sexualized women can sell a product. What has changed is that the sexualization of women has become even more blunt and audacious. Nudity is right in your face. Another interesting change that we see today is that women seem to take an active role in presenting themselves as a sexual object. Instead of focusing on the magazines or advertisement, this time I looked at the social trend in mainstream culture to see the new phenomenon of sexualization. In previous years, sexualization was imposed or enforced from outside. And that imposed sexualization of women was criticized altogether. However, what we see in today's culture is that women voluntarily sexualize themselves. And what is even more interesting is that the contemporary self-sexualization mimics the sexuality in either soft or hard pornography. The line between public and private became very blurry. In today's society, sex appeal has become a synagogue for all appeal. Sex appeal has become greatly valued, It is being so valued to the point that active and public exposure of one's sexuality is not only common, but also perceived desirable. We are living in the not only everywhere in magazines, posts, social media, but it's made to that of pornography. It's not as pornified that is popular. What I meant by pornified sexuality is not the real porn that involves a real sex, but the state post pornographic sexiness. This is something that is different from previous sexualization in mainstream culture. I have to warn that some of the images on the next few slides could be sexually provocative and disturbing. Here is an example of hypersexualized culture, a pole dance. Pole dance is historically associated with a strip club where men paid to see a striptease performance. But nowadays, pole dancing has gained popularity as a form of regular fitness. Pole dance classes or cardio striptease classes are offered through fitness centers and marketed as empowering. You may find a Groupon deal for the class. Because it is like any other fitness exercise, kids can take the class. In fact, World Pole Sports Championship is in its 8th year, and the championship categories ranging in ages from 10. It's not hard to find college women to roll up their shirts to flash their breasts at a bar for the cheering men. There are women who participate in a wet t-shirt contest on a spring break party. Spreading nude selfies through photo texting has gained popularity among young adults as well as teenagers. And a baby nipple tassel cardigan can be purchased. This trend is especially popular among young women. Improving one's personal attractiveness has been an ongoing social value, and it is nothing inherently wrong about it. However, the current trend in which pornified sexiness became the mainstream, and women take an active role in playing sexualization on themselves that deserves attention and exploration. Scholars and journalists have noticed this hypersexualized cultural phenomenon, and they introduced these terms: pornographication, porno chic, brunch culture, and porn chic. All of these terms, as you can see, describe the pornographic imagery in mainstream art and popular culture. Again, this pornographic sexual imagery is different from real pornography. This is staged or posed pornographic imagery that does not contain a real sexual act. There are two trend generators in the hypersexualized culture. One is the trend generated by professionals, and the other is by general public. We are very aware of the celebrity-led pornographic sexiness. Although sexual imagery within mainstream culture may have begun earlier, it became really evident in the early 1990s. Madonna is considered as one of the tipping point persons who made hard pornographic images as stylish and brought it to the mainstream pop culture. Her coffee table books called Sex featured hardcore porn images of sexual acts, including sadomasochism and analingus, but they were featured as stylized and edited by a fashion magazine editor and photographers. And we've seen so many celebrities imitating sexual act on live performance or posting a nude selfie on the public space. At the same time, the porn industry found its way into mainstream culture. While celebrities mimic pornographic sexuality, the porn industry was destigmatized and porn stars gained cultural acceptance. There was a shift from individuals who performed the sexual acts in the early porn film, and they were usually prostitutes, to entertainers acting in scripted movies in the 21st century. Porn stars had become celebrities who were not only accepted, but also even admired and exemplified by the public. Porn stars write best-selling books and give advice on sex life for lifestyle magazines. The other stream of the trend generator is the pornographic sexiness participated by members of the general public. General public participates in the culture in two ways: as a supportive and enthusiastic consumer of sexualized content, or as an active creator or performer of the hypersexiness. Especially on the social media platforms such as TikTok or Instagram, women began to post or sell their sexualized images to gain popularity and money. The site called OnlyFans is a newer platform, social media platform, that is best known for a place to sell nude photos and videos. Number of users have become really rich selling their self-sexualized content. So people who participate in the hypersexualized culture, we call them self-sexualizers, people who self-sexualize. When we look at self-sexualization, there are four key concepts related to it. The first concept is objectification. Objectification is treating human being as an object. It occurs when a human being is treated like a being instead of as a thinking and feeling being. For instance, an employer treats an employee as a replaceable object part falls into the objectification of a human. Sexual objectification is a type of objectification that happens in one's sexual domain. Sexual objectification is treating human as a sexual object, as we saw in the definition earlier. The advertising image of woman as a product itself is an example of sexual objectification. When women experience constant sexual objectification, directly or indirectly through the cultural environment, they begin to internalize those sexualized experiences. They start to take an outsider's view of self as an object. When it happens, it is called self-objectification. Self-objectification is thinking oneself as an object. When they start to see oneself as an object, they value more for their appearance, which is the outward package of an object. Because of the weight they put on their appearance, they habitually monitor their appearance, which may influence on their performance on other activities. And there are numerous studies on the negative consequences of self-objectification, which include increased in body shame, negative body image, eating disorders, etc. Now we have self-sexualization. This is an active form of sexual self-objectification. Self-sexualization is treating oneself as a sexual object by their choice with playfulness. Unlike sexual objectification that is sexually objectified by others, self-sexualization is when a person voluntarily presents oneself as a sexual object for fun. aforementioned examples of a web t-shirts contest or flashing behavior or self-made sexual contents on social media are the examples. There are two theoretical views on this self-sexualization. One sees this as a sign of women's liberation and empowerment because it supports the choice that women can express their own sexuality according to their wishes. Self-sexualization is to say no to the society that tells women to cover up and be modest. So it is a part of sociological progression. The other side sees this as false empowerment or liberation because women do these for male attention to male audience. And it requires acceptance and approval from others on their sexuality to feel good about their sexualization, to be successful with their sexualization. And because sexual presentations are often appearance and look-based presentation, it is not for the true expression of individual sexuality. We are seeing more empirical researchers investigating the issues on self-sexualization, but we need more research. Some researchers looked at self-sexualizing behaviors such as texting, flashing, and others were interested in antecedents and moderating effects. Here are some of the reasons why it may explain how and why women voluntarily became active subjects of sexualization. We will be talking about media influence, of course, and peer influence and peer context, and positive feelings from self-sexualization, and influence of normalized porn. Media influence can explain it by phenomenon where women self-sexualize. Exposure to virtual reality presented in media contributes to viewers' conception of their social reality. Media influence has been proven by many researchers. For instance, a study that analyzed 109 empirical studies that were published from 1995 to 2015, the study concluded that exposure to sexually objectifying images of women in media had caused a range of consequences, such as greater self-objectification, which manifests as constant monitoring of one's appearance, greater body dissatisfaction, greater endorsement of sexism, and even greater tolerance of sexual violence. Exposure to a sexualized female image in the media encouraged viewers to accept the sexualized imagery as a true representation of reality. The same impact can occur for self-sexualizing behaviors. Exposure to self-sexualizing images of celebrities who gain popularity can contribute to viewers' conception of their social reality and influence on their beliefs and attitudes and behavior. Constant media exposure to self-sexualization not only contributes to the normalization of such behavior, but also influence viewers to expect the similar positive gains from their self-sexualization. Especially when young women see non-celebrities who became popular and made financial success, that could have a stronger impact on them because they can relate to those women who started as a non-celebrity ordinary person. These are the images that you can see when you Google Instagram model. They were clearly presenting themselves in a sexual manner to gain followers. The second contributor to self-sexualization is peer influence and peer context. When we really look at young women who self-sexualized in public, they often refer to peer pressure. a study that interviewed 37 college women who flashed their breast in a homecoming celebration. The study found that their flashing behavior was unplanned, influenced by alcohol, and most often pressured or forced by peers. All flashers reported having negative feelings about their behavior after flashing. They also recalled violent force used by men. Yet most of the flashers had engaged in flashing behavior more than once. Interestingly, male students in that event reported that they believed those women came to the event planning to flash. Similar to flashing behavior, the presence of peer pressure was found on other self-sexualizing behaviors. For instance, in a study of same-sex kissing behavior among heterosexual women at parties and bars, women reported that they felt the pressure to perform bisexually to entertain the male audience who were watching them. Other studies also reported the peer influence on teenagers. A study found that adolescent girls sometimes felt pressured to send their sexually provocative pictures to their boyfriends. And peer approval of sending those photos was the significant factor for their behavior. Talking with friends about appearance was also found to be a significant factor of wearing sexualized, revealing clothing. Another contributor they may explain self-sexualization is the positive feelings that women may get from self-sexualizing behavior. Some women have reported that the experience of having positive feelings, such as being approved, appraised, or admired by men. As a matter of fact, she will probably be well treated by men because in general, attractive people are treated favorably in various situations, such as in performance evaluation, in hiring, and in selecting a dating partner. In a aforementioned study of flashing behavior, some participants talked about feeling of being accepted, popular, and special as a result of their flashing. So there is some evidence of having good positive feelings from self-sexualization. Positive feelings were also reported among women who work professionally at a sexually objectifying environment. A study with a woman who stripped for a living showed that some dancers enjoyed the feeling of conquering and being in control. However, there were women who felt degraded and out of control. Similar responses were reported in a study with employees at Hooters. It's a restaurant where female employees are actively sexualizing themselves for higher tips. Some women reported that their self-confidence and self-esteem increased and they became outgoing as a result of working in that environment. However, others reported uncomfortable experiences from feeling unsure on how to act and experiencing bad vibe or creepy feelings from customers. The final contributor we are going to talk about is the pornography. Due to the internet, of course, access to pornography has become significantly easier through personal computer devices. It has become so easy, and some of it is free, that even adolescent boys and girls are exposed to online pornography, either intentionally or unintentionally. And some women use porn as one of the sources for sexual information and sex education. A study about public health expressed a concern for the people who use porn for education, because porn is created with the explicit purpose of sexual arousal, and it rarely shows a safer sex. It's hard to deny the fact that pornography contributed to the hypersexualized culture. One evidence is female genital cosmetic surgery, which is called designer vagina. This surgery is to have an aesthetically pleasing appearance, and it is often inspired by porn. Previously, this surgery was done primarily by sex workers and nude models, or women for medical reasons due to infection or pain. However, a designer vagina has become increasingly popular among women for aesthetic purposes. Some women stated that they compared their genitals to those in pornography and expressed dissatisfaction with their vaginas. So those are some of the factors that can explain the hypersexualized culture where women self-sexualize. However, there are a lot more factors, of course, that could contribute to the individual's self-sexualization, including demographic like socioeconomic variables, relationship status for previous sexual experience, or individual psychological factors like personality traits or beliefs. Researchers are looking into the motivations and the outcomes from self-sexualization, and this will be a topic for another day. Coming back to Karen LaMonte's work, I think her work does reflect what many of us experience or observe living in this current society. We are often defined and evaluated by our appearance, clothing, and body type, both consciously and unconsciously. And the tension between private and public sexuality of her work speaks to the self-sexualizing behaviors, the overlaps between private and public bodies. And either imposed sexualization or self-imposed sexualization, it's still the objectification of female body and sexuality. Well, because sexual objectification can occur to both men and women, young and old. We study about the phenomenon with a hope to extend the research to other gender and sexual identities in the future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. This was extremely thorough, and I really enjoyed learning more about your research. I feel like when we first proposed this lecture, it was so hard to imagine, because I didn't know your research as well, where we would lie today. And I feel like you've covered an incredible amount of territory. We do have a few questions, and I think it could be worth discussing, because you've really gone into specifically pop culture advertising, which is, and the fashion industry, which of course, those are all intertwined. And one thing that I often think about is like the history of the nude and the female form in painting and in art. And when you think about the canon of historical painting, like it's a whole other topic for another day. But you know, we're talking about these power stances and people standing and sort of and people and some of the advertisements perhaps, you know, demurring, but then it also makes me think about contrapposto, which is a really important way that people stand, and they're, you know, like the David. So it's so interesting depending on like the context of what you're looking at. A couple questions that came in here for you is self-sexualization change involves only women's bodies, or are you finding, or maybe you haven't researched this yet, that there's also similar trends for men figures as well?
Definitely. When you look at the most contemporary social media platform, the OnlyFans, there are also men who also sell his nude and sexualized videos, and he gained quite of money selling those. And it's not just limited to women for sure. But the thing is, most researchers are looking at women for now, because we see this phenomenon among women, especially for younger women, a lot more. So we are trying to focus on here to starting and hoping to expand the research and trying to understand what's going on in across genders and across sexual identities and across ages and across the cultures. I feel like it's going to be so interesting if we look at the self-sexualization happening in South Korea. From here in Europe, there will be evident of differences in there. So I'm really looking forward to study about the social, the cultural comparisons.
It's so funny. That was literally the next question was, do these trends emerge everywhere in the world, or is it mostly the Western media promoting this kind of imaging?
The articles and books were mainly, they kind of started from the Western society because it was kind of started earlier and more bigger. But I also see, I personally witnesses pole dance offered or sexualized belly dance offered in South Korea on the street. So, and also speaking of South Korea, they're really huge on plastic surgery, including breast enlargement. So women getting this breast enlargement the intention is to show and attract male, and they start to take photos professionally, body profile photos to post their sexualized or revealed, exposed photos on their social media. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you totally did. And so one question I'm wondering, and this is sort of off the cuff, but because you came to Western culture, and because I'm wondering, like, what brought you to this research? How did you arrive at this? You know, is it something you were seeing back home and then you saw here and then you wanted to compare? Sort of how did you get into this?
What I see is the fast change from objectification to self-sexualization, self-objectification. That's I see is so quickly changing. But how I got into this topic was actually learn about self-objectification theory from the psychology class that I took in graduate school. And I was thinking, if this woman who self-objectify goes through all these negative consequences, then what about those women who voluntarily present themselves as sexual object and invite those sexually objectifying experience to them? Then what will happen to them? The negative consequences will be the same, or will there be other differences? That was my curiosity that drew me into this studying about it.
That's fascinating. Yeah, and I do feel a strong shift in my short life. You know, I definitely am noticing the shift from, I think technology plays a huge role, you know, social media, you touch on all of that. Okay, there's one more message here. So this person's saying, it seems that the self-sexualization is connected with self-care and makeup, like the industry campaigns lately about being pretty and, you know, wearing makeup equals being worthy or healthy even. Have you looked into that a little bit as well? Is that sort of a side part? Because I know that your forte is fashion merchandising. So it's interesting that where you've landed with the research.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in very weird, you know, position in between a fashion scholar and psychologist related topics here. But my next research that I received a grant on is looking into consumption of sexualizing women, whether they use healthy consumption, like eating well and exercise well, and which it could include risky consumption with risky appearance management behavior, such as plastic surgery or diet pills, or some, you know, something makes them like vomit and lose weight and like that. So that's literally the research project on my file right now.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, we can't wait to hear more. And I feel like I need to say before we wrap this up that I had lots of conversations with Karen Karen LaMonte in previous lectures, and sort of took her to task a little bit on what I perceive to be an idealized female form. And she had some really interesting responses to that. She talked about how she's used her own body a lot. And that makes sense to me because, like, it's putting the self out there in a way that actually goes back to this whole self-sexualization thing. but also that she was really open to considering castings where there's sort of gender fluidity, you know, like men inside of traditionally female garments, such as dresses and things like that. And so we'd really, we talked about trying to pursue something like that for the show, but with the pandemic and everything being closed down, she didn't have access to a lot of the facilities she would have needed to be able to pursue that kind of thinking. But I'm excited for her to hear this lecture, and I'm excited to see what she thinks about her work. And
I will be there.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you so much for, you know, your time, your careful research in today's presentation. We're so pleased to have been able to have you here, and thank you again, Dooyoung. It's really been a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. So to conclude, I just want to end by giving everybody some teasers of what's upcoming. The next thing coming up for the Karen LaMonte exhibit, if folks are interested, is the final public evening is a Unite. And these are brand new public evenings. Anybody's invited to, they're free, they're open to the public. We're working with the French department. We're working with the dance program. We're working with the costume design program. It's going to be a really fun evening that's going to be showcasing student work as well as faculty. And we hope you can join us. It's next Friday night, free and open to the public. And finally, just thank you. Thank you all so much for coming, being part of the Barry Art Museum and our programming. We hope you have a wonderful night, and we'll see you again after the holidays. Bye now.